to Eric that like when I tell people I go by cat, people just automatically assume it's with a K, and I'm like, no, no, it's cat with a C, like the animal. Like,
Okay.
how do you
So,
not get
yeah,
that?
we're streaming. We're streaming. We're
Okay,
live.
all right.
Hello,
Hello.
Okay.
everybody.
Hello. Mhm.
So this is our first Geek and Greet of 2025. We are going to be interviewing kids in the attic. If people would like to make their introductions, that would be the time to do it.
Okay, well, Kit, why don't you go first, since you spoke first.
Well, yes, but I'm not that important. My name is Kit. I am the CEO and head of Fool's Moon Entertainment Incorporated. I am primarily a writer and editor, and the tools on my belt would include the games Widdershins, the Advanced Waypoint System, which is an OGL game engine for people to use, and First Contact.
Is
Next.
First Contact Star Trek related?
Okay, well, I guess we're going away. Okay, so with First Contact, what I did was I made a game engine which allows you to play pretty much any science fiction. And it allows you to play on the scale of Starship Combat, Red Shirts, and Command Staff, and you have a different dice pool depending on what you're playing. And if you've ever heard of Button Men, that was kind of the inspiration for the dice engine, where you try to roll set and capture the game master's dice, and the game master tries to capture your dice, and each capture is a success. So you're gathering successes while the game master is gathering complications for you.
Okay. Okay.
Well, I am Kit's spouse, Cat. I do some of the line editing for Fool's Moon Entertainment, and I'm also starting to do the occasional bit of voice acting. So, you'll be able to hear my voice on one of the tracks for the upcoming Trouble Seekers project. um, yeah, that's about it. Aside from that, I just participate in things like playtesting.
I'm Munchkin. I'm an occasional playtester, and I've written the base form of one campaign for one of Fool's Moon's games. Aside from that, I'm just an occasional guest here on the streams.
I'm Eric. I go by Erock Van Roxalot online sometimes. I have played in about 4, if not 5, Fool's Moon playtests of different things. And I've written my own, modules and one-shots and things like that, but never anything published yet.
Is it down to me then? I'm Lucas Polisari. I am one of the kids in the attic. I co-founded Kids in the Attic with Rick Hershey, and I'm a project manager, primarily an editor at this point. Although writing, editing, it all combines together. There.
I'm Lenny. I'm just a player and game master. And kind of new to all this, and so it's nice to meet y'all. And yeah, just very excited to be here.
Okay.
And I'm Wolfie.
Oh,
All right, fuck me, I guess. Your tech doesn't need a response. Fuck me, I guess, guys. Oh, man, I'm gonna leave now. Bye. Sheesh.
Hi,
Oh.
Wolfie.
Hi.
We use the techs who aren't part of the whole show.
Well, you
Yeah.
wanted me.
We're used to invisible text.
Well, I also do run my own D&D game on every other Saturday, so chime in on that one. Wolfie the Rogue. So there's that. That's about all I have. I'm just here for fun now.
Yay, plug.
Might as well get it in.
You're here.
But no, I also do the tech stuff for these guys mainly on Mondays or every other Monday when they have their games now, and for this. So get used to see my face at least for here.
A tech
Lucas,
who is
tell us
not
about-
invisible.
Oh, tell us
Not
about Kids in the
today.
Attic.
Kids in the Attic is a joint venture with really, we say that, but it's Rick Hershey's baby. Rick Hershey is a well-known stock artist. You've probably seen his work. He's featured in, if you go onto like Drive-Thru RPG, last time I checked, it was over 3,000 games have used his art in some way or another. He's been working in the industry for far too long, as he'll describe it. I think he's getting close to 20 years of doing art and other projects and stuff. And 13 years ago, 12 years ago, I have to double check my math on that. I started working with him as a sort of writer, project manager when he was running Fat Goblin Games. We sold that company off about a year ago.
Fat Goblin, really?
Yeah, Fat Goblin Games we had sold it off because for Fat Goblin Games, Rick had primarily designed it as a Pathfinder and D&D game, D20 based games company. And we had a lot of followers, but so many people knew us for that it was hard for us every time we ever produced anything that wasn't D20. And then we were going through that transitional period where it was, okay, Pathfinder 2nd edition is coming out. Do we want to just republish stuff? Do we want to produce new stuff? The sales markets aren't there. 5th edition was going through its whole problems, and we were selling it just around the same time as like the OGL crisis and stuff happened. And
yeah.
So that we were already in the process when that kind of went down, if I remember correctly. I'm trying to remember the timeline. But it was kind of like we didn't want to the D20 space was harder and harder to make it in, and really we were interested in doing other things, and everything we did that was other for Fat Goblin Games it always sort of only appealed to part of our audience. And so we created Kids in the Attic as a indie publishing house so we could focus on non-D20. Not that we're against doing D20 stuff anymore, but our focus has been other things.
Yeah, I've actually had a few Fat Goblin things that I picked up. So
okay,
yeah, I have nothing bad to say about Fat Goblin Games.
It was great fun to work, but it was tricky to do. Our stuff that we were getting more popular for was stuff like Stranger Stuff that we were doing in Tiny D6, which is a game, and that was my project. That was my baby in many ways, and but it was just it was hard to break further than just sort of being an add-on to Gallant Knights games and stuff.
Yeah. I picked up a lot of the Tiny D6 stuff. I wound up giving it as a gift to my best friend's daughter, and she's running a zombie campaign with it.
Oh, that'd be a good one.
She's got like stack of Tiny D6 books.
I don't think I've played Tiny D6. Or if I have, then it was at a Can Games and I can't remember it.
It's a solid little system, and it's Alan Barr really does a great job with it. It's very cohesive, and I break it badly in my versions. So
yeah.
I mean, is it really a home game if you don't homebrew it to death?
Well, I mean, when you're publishing it, it's a problem. I mean, Alan's a fairly decent friend, I think. And he very kindly purchased all of the Stranger Stuff, all the Tiny D6 stuff that we had produced at Fat Goblin Games. So it's still available through Gallant Knight Games.
Yeah. Can Games, just for anyone who's not aware, is Ottawa's oldest RPG convention.
Yeah, I've run some games there on Kit's behalf a couple times. Twice, actually. Exactly twice.
Yeah, because it's never a great sign if the only person you ever see running a game is the person who designed it. It's always good to see, like, yeah, other people can like get their hands on it and get other players to understand it and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So you were Munchkin, you were talking about house ruling. So what's your thoughts on game designers house ruling their own games for conventions and such? It's like, or like on streaming, it's like, yeah, so I'm going to run the game that I wrote, but I'm not actually going to use the rules. I mean, isn't part of that to actually educate the players and the viewers on how the game runs?
Well, yeah. So if you're running it for the purpose of demonstrating the game to other people, then obviously you're going to be pretty light if using any home rules. But when you're playing a home game for yourself that is not for the purpose of teaching other people how to use it, go wild. The important
Definitely.
part in that scenario is just to have fun. Rule of cool.
That's where Jeff Gander is running into that problem with trying to run with you folks. The Sleepy Hollow, our game from last year that we produced for the Year Zero engine, and there's just rules and things that make a lot of sense at the table, but like online with the mediated system, and it's just like, okay, we're gonna do this a little differently, we're gonna do that a little differently. So it's tricky to be like, is this true to the game mostly? Because most of the tweaks are like situational, based off of being interactive this way, not
Yeah, I
additive.
mean, like there are changes you have to make when you're doing games online. That's just the nature of the fact that you're not all sitting in a room together around a physical table.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that with Trouble Seekers because I have no idea how I'd run Trouble Seekers on stream since you're playing blackjack as the dice mechanic.
I
So it's like,
Hmm.
how would you do
Pretty
that?
sh- I'm pretty sure you would just look up streams
Yeah.
that are playing blackjack and see how they do that, and then
Yeah.
integrate it into your game.
Yeah,
It
but
doesn't
you
even
need
roll-
like
You
3 or
need to
4 extra
have-
cameras.
Yeah, presumably
mean-
you need to be able to actually capture footage of the table.
I mean,
Does
if,
it
Yeah,
roll
we put
20
my camera
have
down and
extra
then-
cards?
there's many ways you could do that. There's Roll20, there's probably Foundry.com, there's Tabletop Simulator that you can just probably figure it all out together. So
Yeah, there's probably
Oh.
some way to run a digital game of
Yeah.
blackjack.
Yeah,
Yeah, there
well,
you
one of the
go.
game
That's
master
probably
needs
how
the
you do
deck
it.
though, so
Mhm.
I mean, with
Well,
Roll20
if
you
look
can
for
add
I'm
it.
sure there's a company that has that. There's probably
Yeah,
a podcast that sells that.
You mentioned Roll20. Roll20 has a deck of cards available, so you're dealing to
Oh, yeah?
from the same
Yeah.
deck to everybody.
With Roll20 you can
there we
have
go.
you can use whatever assets they have. You can add your own.
Mhm.
In my own game, I actually do have. I bought the cards for both digital and physical. It's a D&D based a tarot card deck, and I
I
like
So
tarot.
have
that's
that.
so recently.
The
Yes,
Empress?
I think I have that.
The Empress
It's
tarot
so
deck.
pretty.
It's so
Yes.
pretty. I actually want to
I'm
implement that
not sure
into
if
the
it's the
game.
same one. I'm not
I mean-
certain if I'd have to look it up, but later.
I'd have
yeah.
to look it up. I'm like, let's
My
go get it.
favorite
Oh my
tarot
gosh.
deck is always going to be the Tyrion tarot deck that ArenaNet released because that's
Fair.
just like so close to my heart.
I want to
This-
see that.
This one that we
I
use.
will show it to you at some point.
This one that I use, I actually got from Kickstarter, and I'm going to be implementing it into the game because you can use it in any way, shape, or form that you want. It says like you can play it as like weather. You can do it as just a tarot deck. You could use it as whatever encounter you
Might-
want to throw
might
at
be
them.
different from the one I have, but that's cool too.
So yeah, this
So, note
it's
to
just
self,
this
do
one.
Not make an RPG based on liar's dice.
Never, because I am the worst when it comes to lying. Never do that. Yet I
No,
play
it's just
rogues.
the liar's dice is, I think it's 10 through king on the dice.
Oh.
So you're rolling the dice and then you cover it up and say, I got this many of this, and But it's like, so how would you simulate that online? But
Liar's
so
Dice has another name, but I forget what it is.
yeah.
Yeah.
So going back to Kids in the Attic. So you mentioned Sleepy Hollow. Do you want to talk a bit about that before we talk about your backer kit?
Sure. So Sleepy Hollow is the game that we produced last year. We did a backer kit for it, and it
Mhm.
uses the Year Zero engine. It's a narrow focus in our mind of taking place 20 years after the infamous story that, as told by Washington Irving, and we're focused on sort of the what happened to Ichabod Crane is sort of a central mystery, but it's not the only thing. I mean, Sleepy Hollow itself is just a creepy little New England town outside of New York, and we're taking place in 1810, I believe it is, and that game in many ways it was the blueprint or the test run for what Rick wanted to do with Folklore Americana, because Folklore Americana is a game that Rick has in one form or another wanted to produce for most of the time I've known him, but at least 8 years actively, he has tried to write it one way or the other. And there would always be, my job largely was to be like, but Rick, what about this problem? And often those would like stop. Like he would be writing and doing stuff, and all of a sudden he would hit some spot, and I'm like, well, we can't do that because X.
Mhm.
and he would just, okay, fine, and he'd put it on the back burner and he wouldn't think about it, and all of a sudden, like a year later or 6 months later, he'd come back and he'd be like, hey, I've thought of a solution for that, and then he would work on pizzas and stuff again, and then he'd run into some other problem. It's like, well, how are you going to fix that one? Or like, well, what if this is going to be a problem because that would conflict with this and stuff. And so Sleepy Hollow, though, was sort of, Rick had a really clear vision. It's an idea that a lot of people know. It's an easy idea to sell, Sleepy Hollow, compared to Folklore Americana, because Sleepy Hollow is, everyone knows the story, the Headless Horseman. It evokes instant images in most Americans' minds, at least. And
Yeah, there have been many adaptations, of course, doing different
yeah,
things with it. Yeah.
there have, and that's where you can take many different components. We sort of blend some of the things. I mean, there's definitely Disney's version is what most people fall back to begin with, but then there's the Johnny Depp Sleepy Hollow. There was the TV show that did a lot of stuff with the ideas. There's many versions of
Like
the
the
show.
Doulahan?
Yeah, and then there's this concept of like the Doulahan and stuff, which have integrated other ways. And while the Headless Horseman himself is a component or a key aspect of the story, it's not the only thing. There's witches and there's ghouls and goblins, all sorts of terrible. New England is a haunted place, and Ichabod's story is just one of many.
So tell us about the game engine a little bit for those who aren't familiar with it.
So we're using especially with Sleepy Hollow, we used a fairly standard version of the Year Zero engine. And we used the dice pool version, so it's D6. Your base dice start with your attribute, add skill, gear, dice, and all that, and you make a big pool, situational, circumstantial dice. Roll the dice. 6s are success. 1s can be bad depending upon circumstance. And then a big component of the Year Zero engine and that we brought in was the stress mechanic of pushing your dice. So initially you roll your dice, you didn't get enough successes, or you didn't get a success, so you push your dice and you can re-roll anything that wasn't a 1. And when you're re-rolling with those stress dice, you're increasing your stress, so you get to add, your stress number keeps going up while your health points and other things would be going down as you play. But a 1 on a stress die induces panic, which is a mechanic similar to, you'll find it in like Aliens, which uses the Year Zero engine from really.
I was just thinking, you mean Mutant Year Zero, which is also used in Tales from the Loop and Things from the Flood.
Yeah, so Year Zero engine is the base system. That's the SRD version, the system reference document. It's Mutant Year Zero. It's Aliens. It's Free League's one of their systems, and they've adapted it half a dozen ways, and we've sort of pulled together our favorite pieces of it. And then Sleepy Hollow. There was one reviewer we were recently watching, and he was like, "Well, it's not really, didn't do anything too unique but it's like you just listed 7 different games that we pulled this mechanic from there and we added it and we tweaked it, and it's like, yeah, but that's not like Free League hasn't published that version for sure, because it's like 3 of those games aren't even theirs, or like they're only barely theirs or something." And it's like, yeah, we pulled a lot of pieces from other parts, but that's the whole point of using SRDs and stuff.
Yeah.
But so Folklore Americana, the game that we're producing now, and the Becker kit in its final 24 hours now, we're starting with what we did in Sleepy Hollow, and Rick is going significantly further with still dice pool, it's still attribute plus skills plus talents and gear and stuff, but the stress mechanic is a bigger component, and there's a lot more dice and dice rolls based off of sort of the lore around you and the stories people tell about you. We just were discussing, there's the 19 Folklore Americana is set during the Great Depression, 1932, is sort of the key year that we're using, and a game that focuses on the sort of the forgotten heroes or the forgotten folk of that time. We're not worried about what was happening in the cities and stuff. We're talking about what was happening in the hollows in Appalachia. We're talking about the South and the Dust Bowl. We're talking about
The farmers.
Yes, the farmers. We're talking about people who were ultimately going to be what we call the Rust Belt today. But in that point, it was just as the factories are first closing and stuff in the Midwest.
In the in the hills and hollers, as they say on the Old Gods of Appalachia podcast.
Yeah, and that's a game that people often compare. Like, it's Rick actually, if he ever does one of these interviews and stuff, he can talk about how he actually was in conversation with the people who ran the podcast long before
Oh, awesome.
it blew up.
Oh,
But
cool.
then they wisely ended up choosing to go with Monte Cook Games, who is a much larger game system, much more popular RPG creator and everything.
Is
But
Rick
Rick
the one?
loved them early on. What was that?
Is Rick the one? Is Rick the one GMing the playtest? Lenny and I are in the playtest that Fool's
Oh, no,
Moon's
that's
doing.
Jeff. That's Jeff Gander. He's the other editor. And Rick has not. So Rick has not been very active online and stuff because in April of this past year, his children were involved in a really terrible car crash. So, and they've needed a lot of recovery. Happily, all of them have lived through the crash and are in recovery. But there was about almost 2 months that, there was about a month that Rick just disappeared completely. And like most of us just, it was occasional messages and stuff because all of his kids had some pretty extensive healing time. But most of them have like, oh, sorry. He's not here tonight because actually one of his daughter's graduation was today. They had delayed all of her graduation stuff because of the accident.
And yet she graduated a year early, I hear.
Yeah,
At least that's a happier occasion. Yeah.
Yeah, when I heard about the accident, Michelle was telling me about that. I was like, okay, so how can we help? And we've been trying to help you guys and try to back his recovery and everything.
You guys,
I'm glad to hear his family's doing well.
Yeah, and he is, and things are going well, and that's where he's back to doing his art regularly, and he's back to doing finishing the final layouts on Sleepy Hollow, and then he's also producing and doing all the art for Folklore Americana. He's most well known as being an artist, but he's becoming a writer.
Yeah, well, he's also doing the artwork for Trouble Seekers for us too. We're using his artwork.
Okay.
Yeah. So a bunch of his the characters he's done we're using as signature characters for the main rulebook, and I think for our first adventure.
The great thing for companies that work with Rick is you can use a lot of his stock art, especially well as filler or as other things, and then get 1 or 2 pieces that are your key piece. But you can still art out the rest of the book, and he's got 400 pieces of art that will fit or work.
Yeah. Okay. So, what do you plan for? Do you see anything coming up for the future for Kids in the Attic?
I mean, right now we're literally 21 hours away from Folklore Americana. Sorry, I've got it open on the screen. Folklore Americana funding, and we are trying to get this over the line. And then Rick is finishing off the last few bits of Sleepy Hollow. We have 3 books technically to finish off on that. One is a cookbook type book that Rick hated doing the layout on, which then it really made me surprised when he wanted to do an add-on that was a cookbook for this one. And it's like literally there was a conversation where it's like, Rick, in 6 months, am I going to be fighting you on this again? Because I know you hate it. And he's like, no, I hated doing it this time because I didn't know how to lay out a cookbook. I know how to do it now. It'll be much better. I'm like, I will remind you of this exact conversation when you fight me in 6 months. And then there's another one that Written Ephemera is all these like deeds. And we went really deep on Sleepy Hollow. Once you've gotten all 13, 14, 15 products in your hands, you can really do some deep dives if you really care to for Sleepy Hollow. Because every person is mapped out, and every home and house and stuff like that is pretty detailed.
The first time I found out that Sleepy Hollow was an actual place was I read a book called Sheila the Great.
Okay.
It's from the Judy Blume, I think.
Yeah. She's the author.
Yeah, she did, Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing, Super Fudge, things like that. So she did one of a big character called Sheila, and she moves to basically the outskirts of Sleepy Hollow. I was like, wait, that's an actual place? That place exists?
Yeah.
And it just went from there.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of place names where you look at them and you're like, no real place would be named that. And they're like, yeah, they are.
But then once we've gotten those last few things out the door, work really starts on Folklore Americana, and we've done remarkably well. So in addition to the core book, which we had it largely done or set up, But as success has hit, we're like, okay, well, we should do this. We should move this to that book. We should do this here. We should expand this because we don't need a 650-page core book. So we're like,
Yeah.
okay, well, we funded the regional guides. We're going to split that off because that's really just a southern thing, or that's really just an out west thing. So let's put those pieces there. And that's even part of the cookbook that Rick did as an add-on last minute here to Folklore Americana. He's including it's not just a cookbook; it's also the Depression era sort of hunting, gathering, living on the road, because
Mm.
those rules are not vital but are wanted in theory. But they're a huge, like, it's chapters and chapters of, like, it's a few, and it's just like, okay, well, that's like 100 pages more on a book that was already getting big. We could
But the
set this up.
survival tactics would give you a really good look at how people survive day to day during the Great
Yeah,
Depression.
and that's
Yeah.
where that it can matter. But it's the whole, like, is that core piece of the story, or is that essential? Is like hobo living the hobo life and riding the rails and stuff,
Mhm.
and the sort of the hobo jungle, and what how they were living and the surviving, and how is the being an Okie who's riding out the Dust Bowl, and what does it mean? All those things are like, it's an interesting component, but it's like, how do we centralize this, or is this like, do we want that to be the core mechanic, or do we?
Mm.
And it's always the tricky bit of like, okay, well, if we pull this part out with this, we can put this there. And so we've
Yeah.
been doing some of that, but we're also trying to finish these other things.
Yeah, what I've told
Definitely.
to some naysayers, like they'll see in mechanics like, why is this even in here? And my usual response is, it's easier to take something out of a game engine than to put something in. So if the game designers put something in, I'm usually happy for that, because if I don't want to use it, I don't use it. But if I do want something like that, I'd rather have something official than me try to make a clutch.
Our
Mm.
big one for that is always is magic systems. If you don't make a magic system core to the game, this was a problem in Stranger Stuff. This was a problem in Sleepy Hollow too. We have casters, but we put them in a separate book.
Hmm.
So if you want to do folk magic, you have to
Oh.
have a separate book. And so everything we released after that, we could reference that idea, but we couldn't. Yeah,
Ooh,
folklore.
there we
There we
go.
go. Folk
Yeah.
The problem is that we didn't keep it in the core, so we can't know when we're right now we're finishing off the last little bit of the Return of the Headless Horseman, the sort of final big adventure, and we're
Hmm.
like, oh, we included these rules that we're talking about in Folklore America or folk magic. Do we need to reprint them here? Because what if you only own the core and the Return? We
Yeah.
can't assume that you own this book. So that's one of those things that,
Mm.
like, Folklore Americana, we're going to integrate the sort of granny magic and folk magic right into the
Yeah.
core book so that we don't have to,
From the
because
start.
exactly that problem.
Yeah, because we're doing basically a second edition of the Fox Magic RPG, and it's going to have a whole bunch of new abilities in it. But the adventures we wrote, we wanted it to be useful for first edition. So a bunch of the mechanics and the special abilities that are going to be in the second edition, we put into the adventure for the players, so that at least they have the mechanics, they know what these abilities are, what they do, and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
that takes a lot of space that could have best been served with other stuff.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's the game. That's the balancing act is how much do you spend on this and how much do you spend on that.
Yeah.
On the player end, I didn't know there was magic in Sleepy Hollow until we actually started in the session 0, because all I had was the
And
main book.
exactly, and that's a problem that like I said, Sleepy Hollow was the alpha project. It was the learning curve of like, oh, this is a problem. It was easy, or it seemed smart at the point, because initially we were like, well, we don't really necessarily want magic to be a core component, so we'll do it as this add-on, and then all those add-ons funded really quickly, and it became a really core part of stuff as we were developing it. So we're like, okay, well,
Hmm.
we just need to
Without
start
it,
in
it
that.
becomes pay to win,
Yeah.
kind of.
My sister had
Yeah.
a question for you, actually, with Sleepy Hollow, because we were looking at the rule set, and
Yes.
one of the archetypes is you're playing like the village priest or reverend or whatever.
Yeah.
And my sister's comment was, "What if you wanted to play a Miko? Because the Japanese were visiting North America and they were part of the culture. They were blending in and stuff like this." So I was like, "So how far in can you put that? Like, would they not fit with Sleepy Hollow or?"
Wouldn't
So
they have
okay,
to have their own shrines?
Mhm.
that's a good one to.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I would wonder. So okay, Sleepy Hollow. I think the answer for Sleepy Hollow is being a foreigner, being an outsider. Even if you're not, like, you could be just from New York, which is only half a day's walk away, and you're already an outsider. Being from Japan makes you a really far outsider, but you're still just as much an outsider. You're still a foreigner in to be in Sleepy Hollow. I think the mechanically you could still easily make it work, um, because there is, I mean, the folk magic, the base systems there. You would have to do a little work.
I
We
wasn't thinking
definitely
of the
didn't
magic
plan.
specifically. I was more thinking of like the character creation and how would it integrate into the setting.
Yeah, that's where I'm trying to think of, like, I think it would work fine. There would you and your game master have to do a lot of that heavy lifting. We definitely didn't design for that.
Yeah.
Which is always, I was just thinking about this today, where there's this that it's not, people sometimes call it game balance a myth, and it's not that it's a myth. It's that it's a problem the game master always has to solve. Because
Yes.
even if you make a game that's perfectly balanced, you
Yeah.
can't. The game designers can't plan for, like, well, what if you don't have, like, we made a base assumption when we wrote this adventure. If your team doesn't, if your party doesn't have that basic assumption,
Mhm.
that's a you problem, not a me problem. Like, I can
Yeah.
only make so many choices. I can't plan an Amico. Like, I would never have thought to, like, oh, I could, technically this is totally legit. Like, that was when Japan was sending out emissaries.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I was talking with John Wick at one point, and he's the one who taught me the game balance is a myth. And I've had this argument with people, and it's like mechanical balance doesn't exist. It is always a tool of the game master to keep the campaign balanced. The second you try to balance everything mechanically, you basically get a vanilla game.
yeah, that's to have a perfectly balanced game. Everyone would have to be equal, which would make it
Well,
no
yeah.
longer.
Also, I mean, what really ends up being important, I think, is narrative balance more than mechanical balance. I mean, an example of narrative balance, of course, is a mark of a good superhero story is that characters with no powers whatsoever are just as important to the reader or the audience.
Mhm.
Like that's one of those things where there's no mechanical balance that can achieve that. You have to do it between the players and the GM.
That's where Superman's popular right now. The story of Lois, or the story of Superman, isn't nearly as interesting without Lois and Jimmy at the
Yeah.
Daily Planet. But if you try
Yeah,
to make
yeah.
Lois' reporter powers equal to Superman's, what are you doing? Like, how do you make
Right?
Jimmy with his camera can somehow do what? What level of power could this? Like,
Take a look
Mhm.
at Mutants and Masterminds 3rd edition, their DC Comics expansion, and take a look at how they built some of the DC superheroes. I was just shaking my head on it because it's like they have Superman. Okay, fine. You know, Superman's got this and this. And then they have like Batman and Nightwing. And it's like Batman has superhuman intelligence, like beyond what a normal person is supposed to be capable of. And I'm like, that kind of shows a weakness in the character creation. He should be more skills than giving him superhuman attributes. But I mean,
yeah,
they wanted the characters to
It-
be reasonably on par.
Batman's power is wealth. That's what his power is.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
yeah.
He's got
Batman.
disposable income.
As far as I'm
I
concerned,
mean,
Batman and
I
Iron Man are the two same. They're just different coins. They both just have money.
yeah.
That's their wealth. They have money.
One's
That's
talking
their
brooding
power.
and one is drunk.
they do
I,
all
well, I
have
There's a difference between the two of them.
yeah,
I'll lean
they
towards
both
that.
have there's
Yeah,
that.
Iron
there's a
Man's an
difference.
artist.
There's a difference between the two of them because Stark handles it with sarcasm, and
That's fair.
Batman handles it with
Whoa,
I'm not gonna share my
Well,
emotions in any capacity.
That's
Yeah.
that's
I
as
disagree, though.
Batman.
The
Is
biggest
that
thing
as
if I put Bruce Wayne in a
Oh
cave,
come on, we all
with a
know
box
Bruce
of
Wayne is the real Mask.
but
This is
if
fair.
I put Bruce Wayne with a box of scraps in a cave in Afghanistan, he's not building an arc reactor. He's making a throwing star. And
I mean,
that's it.
he's making the Batcave. That's all he's making.
Yeah.
I'd actually argue that Tony Stark is more of an artificer.
He's definitely an
got-
artificer.
he's got-
He's definitely an artificer.
Yeah. So he learns how to build magic shit. So that's where he's actually got that sort of like, same with Cable being able to like build anything he thinks about. Like he's got, that is a
That's not
type of,
Cable. That's what's his name? What's his name? Forge.
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 That's right.
is
That's
not
right. That's right.
easy,
Yeah.
Forge can build
Uh,
anything.
That's a
yeah.
deep cut.
Actually, another example I just thought of like a non-powered character showing their kind of strength is like one of the episodes of the Daredevil TV series. There's a bit where Foggy Nelson is in a hospital room with this bunch of violent gangsters, and he's scared out of his wits, but he manages to control the room. And I was just
Mhm.
like, scenes like that, they're amazing.
Yeah, but that's the narrative. Like you were saying, that's
Froggy is
a
the goat.
narrative.
Yes, we can all
So does
agree
anybody else?
Foggy is the goat.
Yeah.
Okay.
So does anybody else have any questions for the audience?
Yeah, we've got on a
For the
quick
designers?
tangent there. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, that's the
Yeah.
narrative focus. That aspect of folklore Americana is Rick is more worried about the narrative cohesion rather than like he literally will say things like the mechanical problem. That's my problem. I have to make his mechanics make sense. I have to make it natural. That he's not worried about that. He's trying to tell his stories and he's trying to set up a world the way he wants to build it, and like that's
Yeah.
what he pays me to do.
I had a
In
question.
case there's anyone,
Oh,
No, you guys can go first.
Sorry.
in case there's anyone in the audience who's as young as me and as unworldly as me, give me the basic breakdown for the hook of Sleepy Hollow and Folklore Americana.
So
Like the
Sleepy
vibe.
Hollow, Sleepy Hollow's main vibe is that it's going to try to get that New England 1810, and which is a strange era for a role playing game. It's an unexplored area, a little bit post Revolution, a little pre Gaslight and stuff, because like Cthulhu commonly starts in 1890. So
Yeah,
Sleepy
so
Hollow
this
is
is
trying to go.
before Lovecraftian.
Yeah, and we're not going for that cosmic feel of New England. We're going for the old woods. There's something in the woods. It's deep and dark. You feel it even today. If you walk down a road and the light alone and the lights go out and you look into the darkness and you think you see something, you feel something. And that has been true, you know, now in the past, and that was worse then because there were no streetlights ever. There were, you were lucky if you had, and that's where the idea of riding a horse like Ichabod. If you read the Legend of Sleepy Hollow, the core component of it is the chase, and it's the dread that's building slowly as Ichabod rides his horse. And if you really put yourself on a horse in 1790, rolling through a woods on an evening in autumn, and the wind is blowing and the leaves are rustling and every little snapped twig. Was it a deer? Was it a rabbit? Was it the headless horseman? You hear another horse coming, but you don't see it ever coming. It's not catching up with you. And there's just this growing dread, and there's nothing you can do because you don't have anything to stop that. What would you do? You don't have, there's no firearm that can stop the headless horseman. You can't just turn on a light. You're not going to get the safety of something. And that's where ultimately he realizes his only option is to try to race for the church, race for the bridge, and he's running and riding and riding, and then who knows what
Right,
happened.
because there's very little infrastructure at that time.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's no safety in community. I mean, in a modern day, I would, I'm trying to get to town. If my car is running out of gas, the dread is building in me, but I just need to get to the next gas station, right? I'm looking for that next sign of safety. I'm looking for a McDonald's that I can stop in, a sign of civilization. There isn't
Or if
that.
nothing else, you got a cell phone and you can call someone.
Yeah.
Did you ever see the old movie with Rutger Hauer called The Hitcher?
I think so. That sounds like one of the terrible films you showed me.
Yeah.
I had
Oh,
the older
he's
brother who showed
so
me all the
good.
terrible films.
Yeah, that
And
movie
Folklore
was
He
Americana?
was so good.
So okay,
I was just
so
gonna say,
the short pitch on Folklore Americana is that it's folk horror set in the shadows of the Great Depression. 1929 is when the Great Depression started in America, Black Tuesday. By 1932, people realized it wasn't going away. There's the history of the Great Depression is hard for us now, so far removed, to realize how much it impacted and changed America.
Mhm.
We're dealing with a post World War I which 1918 is when the war ended. So if you fought in that war, you're in your 30s, roughly 40s, depending upon exactly if you're talking about an 18-year-old or a 20-something who
Or if
fought
you
in that
lied
war.
about your age.
Yeah, or if you lied about your age, and so you're dealing with an America that is falling apart. This is 1932. Rick also chose that because it's before the New Deal. FDR had just been elected. He was making promises that something was going to change, but in your day-to-day life, things are getting worse. And as you're getting, I mean, the Dust Bowl, we think about, that's a part of where just a vast swath of America, basically, farmland became unusable. The Dust Bowl, because it dried out, we weren't able to crop properly you do agriculture on it, and all of those people had to move, and so many people were having to move out of the mountains of Appalachia because the mines were closing and entire ways of life were being disrupted. People were moving from the cities into the woods and vice versa. And when people move, you take more than just your stuff with you. You take your beliefs and your ideas and your understandings, but you're also in a new place with new ideas and new things to be afraid of. And so a component of folklore Americana is the things that people brought with them, but also the things that are here and were always waiting for us. And we're trying to, that intersection of things, like Rick, for instance, has a strong connection to the Pennsylvania Dutch, which is a part of why Sleepy Hollow connects with him, because there's a strong Pennsylvania Dutch, which is ultimately are Germans. So if you don't know the specifics of the semantics, but Rick has a connection to that world and grew up with people like Granny Magic. When we talk about magic in Folklore Americana or Sleepy Hollow, it's not I cast fireballs and magic spells. It's Grandma cooked this wonderful cookie. I was feeling bad. I fell down and hurt my knee, but Grandma gave me a cookie and it made me feel better. Now, was it because Grandma paid attention to me? Or is it because when Grandma made this cookie, she made them with love? Or is it because when Grandma made those cookies, she slaughtered a cow and spilled its blood and essence into the cookies and you fed it? What Grandma did to make those cookies is unimportant because I feel better and I don't need to know. I don't want to know why Grandma's cookies healed me. Probably because finding out why Grandma's cookies really healed that wound and made the scar go away, maybe it's best I don't find out. But maybe I'm
As
also
a
going to
cookie clicker.
Eldritch Grandma.
So
I was about to say, Grandma's got
There's
some magic.
in the
I need to
cookies, though.
know. I need to know what the
We all see
magic
there's
is.
magic in those cookies.
Give
and
me
that's
that
why
recipe.
and that's why
Well,
you're going to go down, and there's other people who survived through this.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you're one of Granny's kin and she decides to pass that knowledge to you, then that would be a huge responsibility as well.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
you
one thing
didn't
I like.
realize it before. Oh, sorry.
No, one of the things that I'd like to stress to some people is that if you're going to have a magic system built into a game world, it needs to be a part of the folk belief. It needs to be part of the religion. It has to be part of the culture. Magic doesn't exist in a vacuum. It was built on the foundation of something else. I mean, like any magic system that you see on Earth, it's connected to something. Even chaos magic has its roots. So
This is
like,
true.
it's what, yeah. This is why, like, when I play Dungeons and Dragons, or when I help Kat with her character in Dungeons and Dragons, it's like, okay, what's your character? What's your character's background? We'll take a look at the spell list and we'll pick spells that fit that. Not just, oh, this will be useful. I want Fireball because it blows things up. It's like, no. Does your culture understand the idea of Fireball? Would they use Fireball? If not, you don't get the spell.
What are you
Yeah,
talking
and
about?
I also have dyscalculia, which makes it very difficult for me to grapple with a lot of super crunchy stuff. So I do tend to need a fair bit of help with things like character creation and whatnot, and sometimes Kit gets a little frustrated, going like, "Why are you making things like spellcasters when?" And I'm like, "Because I'm sometimes just inspired to make a spellcaster. I'm sorry."
Yeah. But I've had
Yeah.
game masters look at me and say, "So why don't you have these spells?" And I'm like, "It doesn't fit the character's theme. Why would I put in spells that don't fit?"
Yeah,
And
yeah. I have
Yeah,
that
it
with
is.
my
It's
characters
almost.
all the time.
It's funny though because I'm a power gamer and I will admit to being a power gamer, but if I build a character, I build it to theme so that it fits into the game setting and it helps the game master as opposed to opposing the game master, and it supports the players as opposed to trying to stand in the limelight.
On the flip side of that, as a player, I'll build for being a power gamer, but I'll build the theme around the power.
Yeah, that works too.
There we
As long as
go.
it's helping
Yeah.
the players and the game master, then
Yeah.
there's no problem with being a power gamer. It's when you oppose the game master and you oppose the players that it becomes an issue.
Yeah.
I don't
Like if I
know.
wanted
the
I
Fireball,
played Rogue.
antagonist.
I play Rogue
like
for
if
my
I wanted
entire
Fireball,
everything.
I would.
You need an
Well,
assassin?
then what am I-
You need an assassin? I'm down. I'm here.
What am I gonna pass?
And you know, as a techie, you're used to being quiet and sneaky and getting shit done without
Buddy.
looking.
Buddy, it's my life.
Here we go.
That is the
And,
life.
My friend was running an Egyptian-based Pathfinder campaign that we're going up the Nile, and I made a kid paladin named Atem, and 16 years old. And by the end of the campaign, I think he might have maybe hit 17, but he was able to lift 5 tons. His thing
But
was,
also very unworldly.
yeah, he was naive as hell. So we're on a boat and we're coming up to the dock, and these guys are like, "Yeah, so we're going to be taking some coin, like a fee for you to dock here and stuff like this." And he's like, "Well, so how much is it?" And they're like, "Well, how much do you have?" And he's kind of looking at them, and he's looking at the rest of the group. He's like, I don't understand what's going on. And one of the guys goes, "You don't know what a shakedown is, do you?" And he turns to the players and is like, "What's a shakedown?" They explain it to him, and he
You're
looks back at
robbing
them
us.
and he goes, "Oh," and he just kind of casually reaches out to like this heavily filled box of stuff and lifts it one-handed as he looks at them. And they're like, 2 silver will be enough.
Yes. Suddenly the fee was very clear.
Yeah. Or we got followed by a river dragon. It's kind of snaking behind us. And we just finished like killing a blue dragon a while back, and we had its skull and everything like this. So he goes to the skull. He picks up the skull one hand and he shows it to the dragon. And he just starts doing this, and the dragon's like, "I got better things to do," and swims off.
Dragons are smart.
Dragons are very
That's
smart.
actually reminding
Usually.
me of the very first time that I fought a dragon in D&D. It was a pretty hilarious story.
The game
Did-
master's just amazed at how often we get around our fights by doing negotiation or intimidation. It's like, yeah, fighting is a last resort. With us, it's always social food first to try to get around it. But if we go for a fight, then it gets really brutal.
It depends on the
you
group.
let him know.
Us for that you punished us for that in Fantasy Age, Kit.
It depends
You
on
do
the
that
group.
enough, though.
Punished us for that in Fantasy Age, Kit.
I would say that depends on what group you're in. I had a character that was raised by a black dragon. And as most people know in D&D, black dragons are more the insane type of dragons. And they heavily went into that, so I went like, fair enough, my character is insane enough to go chill next to the dragon that's just in its horde. I was like, everyone's talking, and I was like, while they're talking, my character just walks up and goes chilling with them. Just chills with the dragon. And the DM was like, "You know what, you would? I'll let it slide." And then the rest of the group was like, "Where'd you go?" And I was like, "Hi, I'm just chilling." And they're like, "What the you're on the dragon?" I was like, "Yeah, I was raised by one. What do you mean?" And I was a half elf, so I was like, "I don't know. What do you want?" It was great.
I just wanted to point out it's 10:20 and I've got a hard out at 10:30. So just,
Okay,
just
well,
so everyone-
We should try to keep the tangents to a minimum then.
Okay,
Yeah.
so our
To
guest
tie
here,
it back to
with-
Sleepy Hollow, I was gonna say, for what I'm noticing as a player is I'm doing a lot more like actual history research to make sure my character fits the theme of the game. I
We're-
did like
yeah.
I did like more research on post-Revolutionary War skirmishes in like one weekend to find like actual things my character could have done. Because
there
one
is
of the
definitely that
I was
makes
gonna
sense.
say one of the things in it is that everyone's supposed to be coming to Sleepy Hollow for like the first time or having a weird reason for returning after a long time. So my character is a drummer boy in the Revolutionary War and just stayed with the war efforts and is now coming back after like 20 years of being
man.
in a soldier, and I looked at what was going on back then, and it's like they're all Native American skirmishes with Native Americans, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
he's gonna have some nice hypocrisy vibes here. He's gonna feel guilty about this. It's great. And
Oh,
then
that works
I
really
found
well
out
with Jeff's plan. Yeah, that works. That's perfect.
he
That's
said he
perfect.
loved it. I don't know why he loved it. Don't spoil it.
Oh, it's gonna be terrible. I'm sorry. It's so bad for you. It's great.
Oh,
I hope you really enjoyed that story.
You were
Is
mentioning
this going to
something
be
about
one of those games where you're just like, just mess me up, honestly?
Awesome.
You're mentioning something about Pennsylvania Dutch being German. I seem to recall hearing that the confusion came from German, like Germany is Deutschland, and like the Germans called themselves Deutsch, and people went, "Oh, they're
I
Dutch."
believe so.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it has to do with that, and then people
yeah.
just being ignorant. We've been ignorant Americans all along. Before we were American, after we were
Although
English.
I think there was confusion in the UK as well, like people saying like I seem to call from Treasure Island, yes, son of a Dutchman, and it's like like,
Yeah.
I mean, we're still ignorant Americans. Have you seen our leadership?
I'm just saying that's where
Ugh, don't
we
get
have
me
a
started
long
on the
history.
Cheeto.
Don't get me started on that, Eric. Don't get me started on that.
No, I didn't mean to. I'm just saying. I fully admit we've never gotten rid of being stupid
But
Americans. We
you're
still are.
continuing a proud tradition, though. That's what I'm trying to say, and that's where the
A
historical
shame
research
tradition.
aspect.
Continuing a shame tradition, but not a proud
Okay.
one.
Okay, it's a tradition. Traditions are just peer pressure from the past, right? So
Right.
So here's a question for you then.
Okay.
A Canadian expansion to the source book.
Folklore Americana or something.
Yeah.
So Rick
Yeah.
had made a joke about that being the 50K stretch goal, and he made it internally, which we have three, because Jeff is Canadian, and we've got two other Brendan Root. I don't remember his last name, and then
Jeff lives about an hour from me.
okay, yeah. So those guys are all they are all really excited with the idea, and Rick's just like, I don't know, man. We'll see if we hit 50K. But there's a big component of Folklore Americana is trying to create a system. So we talked about magic being, it's important that folk magic is situated in a history. Well, we're lucky because we're not inventing much. We're trying to create systems that allow you to play with existing things. And Rick is really focusing on what he knows. I'm focusing a bit on what I know. I'm a Midwestern boy and from this area, and I know various certain aspects that I'm going to be covering, and Jeff's going to be covering his areas. And the way the game is going to be designed is that if you're really interested in some specific niche or some specific lore from your own hometown kind of thing, or from your own background, you should be able to do that research yourself, take what we've hopefully designed as like examples of, and you can be like, okay, well, Granny Magic doesn't make sense, but Grandma Oompah, she did this stuff and it's kind of close. So if I just tweak this and change that and do this, it'll basically work for what I need. And I might add in some other little aspects from other parts of the game. Because that's also part of, like, so for instance, I'm of Finnish ancestry, and it came from an area where there were lots of people from Finland, and so we have a lot more of that tradition in sort of mind. And I would rewrite so much of what Rick wrote for his Pennsylvania Dutch background would easily be just, okay, it's a little different, twist this part a little bit more naturey because they leaned this way, a little bit more Green Witch and stuff in there.
Wasn't Finnish magic basically name based?
There's a large component of that. That's the Kalevala's version of it, has a lot of that. Unto and Hito, they do a lot of name, but then those were the legends and the myths and the stories, but the actual magic traditions are a little bit weirder spirit animal stuff that it gets tricky to. I can't give a quick. It's difficult to give a quick.
I read a webcomic about it once.
And that's where it gets it's a wild, it's something somehow both familiar and very foreign at the same time, which is why it's fun.
Yeah.
I had a
So
question.
we should probably Yeah, go ahead. I was about to say we're going to wrap up. So last questions.
Yes.
As
You're
the
not being
tech,
ignored.
right? Thank you. As the person who's just in the tech, listening to Eric and Lenny and their group doing character creation for Sleepy Hollow,
Okay.
it kind of sounded to me really close to the Vampire Masquerade TTRPG game. I don't like you said you're the one who came up with it. I don't know if like you were like it just sounds semi similar to it with like the attributes how you had like certain things you were really good at, other things you were really sucky at, but you only had certain amount of points to put in everything. So it was
We're
like
pulling. I mean, we're pulling from the Year Zero engine, which is it's Mutant Zero, Free League. I mean, ultimately, so many things are so popular across. Like, how many RPGs have a strength score or an agility score? And the skills. There's only so many skills in all of human history. I mean, that's where the mechanical stuff. We're really doing a carbon copy of a lot of the core for Sleepy Hollow, especially. We're switching things up and feeling much more free to do crazy things. We kind of tried to stay close to the original Year Zero engine for cross compatibility and for so people would feel comfortable. But we kind of the number one piece of feedback we feel like we've gotten is that it's like we could have went further, we should have went further. So we're going to try to not leave anything generic in Folklore Americana. We're going to try to make it more tweaked to the specifics, even if it's just something as simple as, here's a talent that makes you a better shooter. We're going to use, you're better at using ranged weapons. We sort of used a generic whatever name, but we know that we've looked up, Deadeye was popular in the West for the concept of that. A sharpshooter did exist in World War One, for instance, but a sniper wasn't. That was kind of a World War II concept.
fair.
So it's sort of like choosing our words to be like, no, this is the right word. This is the word that you should, because
The words have vibes.
yeah,
And synonyms have different feelings.
Yes.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, and so we're trying to be more like that.
An English teacher
compared to Vampire.
there are no synonyms. Yeah, I think what you were, I think what the similarity you're thinking of, Wolfie, is a point buy system for attributes where you have a certain amount of points to spend, whereas some other games will insist that you roll them randomly.
Or will give you a standard array.
It's been a while. It's been a while since I've played it, but yeah.
It just where you even do player auction. Yeah.
Yeah, it just had the same vibe, and so I was just curious if was like an inspiration or if it was.
It's definitely, for me, that's definitely back in the, because that World of Darkness Mage especially was more Vampire was kind of like but Werewolf and Mage are more what I'm familiar with from classic World of Darkness. And so it's there for me mechanically.
It was an interesting. I was like listening because I'm like trying to get everything ready, and then I was like, why do I feel like I'm back at Vampire the Masquerade and I'm not even playing?
How that could work. Changing the Lost, I think, would fit in very well.
Changing the Lost is the one that I would play if I got the chance to play one single World of Darkness game.
It's a good one. It's one of my absolute favorites.
Plus, I just love the Fae.
Wraith is always fun, but you have to have way too much time and thought because Wraith is very hard to play.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wraith is hard.
Yeah, I had a talk with somebody about Wraith, and I was like, Wraith and Changeling the Dreaming are both super depressing, and they were like, how are those things depressing? I was like, Wraith. The entire point of Wraith is you want to build a legacy. You want to make your life have mattered before you move on. And that's just it. Like, the strongest ghosts in Wraith are the ones that have a legacy that they can bond onto. And but the thing is, you're going to be severing these bonds bit by bit by bit. So once
so you can move on. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So and then I was like, with Changeling, it's like you have all this wonder and you're forgetting it piece by piece by piece. It's fading away, and that's the tragedy of Changeling. It's got all this wondrous stuff, and it's played for laughs. But I mean, if the game master plays it straight, that is a horribly depressing game.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, there are a few
is.
games like that where on the surface they seem very happy-go-lucky, and then you sort of take a look underneath and it's like, oh, that's yeah, that's super dark.
We're trying to be honest. Sleepy Hollow and Folklore Americana are depressing to begin with.
So it's
You
well,
base-
Yes,
it's all
yes,
out
they
there.
are.
It's dark.
You base
That's
the
what it
latter
is.
on the
It's
depression.
yeah. It's a great
You're being
depression.
honest.
I'm getting kisses.
All right,
All right.
I need to step out.
Yeah,
Thank you
it's
so much for
10:30.
having me. Yeah.
Thanks for being
Yes.
here. Hopefully you'll
Thank
be
you
able to
very
join
much.
us again. We're going to be doing this next month as well, and everybody is always welcome to come back whenever we have one of these.
All right. Thank you very much.
Say
All right.
goodbye,
Take care of
Daisy.
you.
Bye.
Take
All
care.
right.
Oh,
Bye, Kitty.
yes.
Off you go.
Yes. Well, so glad that you guys could make it. It was good to meet new people and hear about new games, at least games that were unfamiliar to me. So yeah.
All right. So take care, everyone.
Okay. Yes.
Bye. Thank you for having us.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for being here.
Have a good night, everyone.
Have a good
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 night.
night.
Bye.